All right, so I did a bunch of construction work in my house, which is why I was gone for a week. People are like, Tyler got scared off the internet. Like, how? By what? So in my house, right, there's a wall right there, which you used to be able to see maybe a part of. God, I cannot draw a straight line on this fucking tablet to save my life. Okay, so the wall's like this, right? And it used to be doors for a laundry room that looked like this. Okay? So there was a water heater here, right? All the way into the wall. And then behind it was another wall like this. I know this isn't like perfectly to scale, but trust me, it's fucking cool. Should turn on the grids for this. It'd probably be a little bit easier. Okay, so in here is my kitchen, right? If you continue back, kitchen looking like this. Kitchen looking like a hard-boiled egg. Okay. And boom. All right, so my kitchen is small as fuck. Especially for me, because I'm like the cook in the family. I love cooking. And I'm also a big bumbling fucking bear of a guy. So I'm always like bumping into shit and having too small kitchen bad. In here, if I keep going, right, is my office. There's a door here. This is where Sam yells at me from, okay? And then my desk right now is like all the way down here, okay? And the former set with the bookshelves is like right here. The bookshelves are still there, okay? This is like the old Sweet Cheeks area right there. So what I did, and then this is the end. So this is a former garage, all of this area. And this is the water heater, right? Boom, boom, boom. This was the old laundry area, and it was fucked. So you have a laundry thing here. We had boom, and then bump, laundry hookups, and then all of this was fucking rotten, especially in this corner right here. What had happened was this unit right here, this is called a laundry basin, right? It looks like this. So you've probably seen this, pretty standard deal. If you do laundry on your own, it'll come up, it'll have a little nozzle and a little nozzle, right? And then there will be a hole that comes down here to your P-trap, right? Somebody watching this is like, Tyler, I don't know if you know this, but I ain't long enough. 18 inch to 36 inches. 6-inch min. This has to be X2 of this. All right. Either way, this is what a laundry basin is. Okay. So that's the new type of it. What was in there when we moved in was a solid steel box of dubious construction that looked like this with rounded edges, right? It was this shape. And it had the hookups, right? So we had hookups here. And then it had this thing, which is a fucking gasket, right? Like super powerful gasket that you had to lock in and went into, we have all copper drain pipes because the house is like old as shit. And once upon a time, I guess you had copper. This thing also had built into it for no good fucking reason, the electric boxes for the unit. And we moved in, this thing was rusted. And every time my wife did the laundry, which is her chore, because I'm not to be trusted with the washing machine for good reasons, this thing would leak and cause like this gigantic puddle on the floor. And so we were like, fuck, we got to look into this. And so I started taking off the wall to fix it. And a series of issues happened. So first I replaced these, right? But I had to try to fit them in the old box. I was like, this isn't gonna fucking work. I'm gonna have to cut this whole thing off. And her father, or my father-in-law, her dad, had come by and we replaced this thing. And as we ripped the wall open, right, we find that everything underneath this, and this was like right here, all of this, go ahead to a second thing, and I'll change it to red, right? All of this was rotten, like seriously rotten. We're like, shit. And then we found out that these vertical studs here had dry rot disintegrated. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of that like this. They had dry rot disintegrated, okay, and also been eaten by termites. And so where this thing was, right, you have this like this many-ish studs. I think there's like a total of 10 there. All of this area the leak had been so bad that this is a poured in place concrete pad for a car. So it's about as thick as concrete gets in residential use. 6-inch, I think, might be 4, but probably a 4 to 5 inch Portland cement. Very, very strong. PSI rating of like 4,000 pounds a square inch. Very, very fucking strong. All of this had to go. All of this, these are all termite eaten. All of this area is termite eaten into right here. I also later found out that there's a stud here that's termite eaten. And this flooring all throughout the kitchen area right here has been affected by the spill as well and is swollen. And when we ripped this wall off, we found out that there's termite shells going into the hallway area here. So what we had decided was, just from starting this, like, okay, this is all got to get ripped out. And when we're ripping it out, it's the best time to do a renovation. So what are we going to do? Like, well, I want to cut down on the amount of time that I have to do stuff, or the amount of space that I have. So I want to get rid of this, right? So we're going to get rid of this water heater. We're going to rip all of this out, and we're going to build a floor, right? Joists in all through here. And so this is this whole thing that we've been doing for the past several months, some of which took enough time. And so basically we get to a point where it's like, okay, how are we going to switch out the water heater? Because when you switch out a water heater, especially in my place, I have electric gas to accommodate the energy needs of my home. So we have a 220 service panel, or 240, whatever the fuck, service panel. It's not high enough because I have an electric stove. You can draw that. So I have an electric stove here, right? Electric stove power is pretty fucking high. This is a 50 amp electric stove. And then I have a fridge, which is actually a high efficiency refrigerator, but it's still like a pretty consistent like 9-10 amp draw with a compressor and a kick on, and then everything else that's, throughout the house, which is a bunch of different shit. And because it's, America 2025, my office has a pretty substantial energy need. So I've got a bunch of 20 amp sockets in there, And our dryer also is electric and not gas. So our dryer, which is over here, right? It's a little efficiency unit, but still it is electric, and it's a 40 amp. So, if you do the math, I have 90 amps basically accounted for in my house at any given time, just with these appliances, 100 amps, right? Because you always want to go way over with all three of these big eaters, big drinkers. So absolutely no way can I put in something like a water heater, which is also going to have, 40, 50 amp requirement because it heats water. Anything that produces heat at all is actually the most energy drawing thing that you have, because it's literally just doing entropy raw with energy. Like it's just doing straight entropy. So when you have a machine that does entropy as the machine's purpose, obviously, like, it's going to have a massive power draw. So things like toasters, your entire kitchen area, all of that heat, those heat producing appliances, they are all eating the most amount of energy at any given time because they're intentionally creating heat. So we can't have that. We got to switch in, and we get what you call a gas tankless water heater because it takes up the least amount of space. It looks like this. So this is what my new water heater looks like, right? And this is also just me because everyone's like, Tyler, do some art streams, do some drawing, and doing a little perspective work is fun, okay? So we have this, and this is a gas tankless water heater. And this thing is a tricky fucker to hook up. This thing is a absolutely bonkers, right? Anybody that responds to any of my my former stuff, also tell them that they have to talk about tankless water heaters. Because I want to see if they know about anything other than like just repeating shit that they hear on fucking Kiwi Farms or Spicy Chat. So this is the highly complicated thing. I'm actually gonna draw it slightly inaccurately just so that you guys can actually see the bottom, right? This is another valve, right? These are not quite to scale. These are actually much skinnier because these are 3/4. These are 3-inch. These are like 3/4 inch. Okay, so this goes in. This goes in. This is a drip valve, right? And then we have a condensate valve, which goes here. And then we have gas. So, and the gas goes all the way down here, right? And actually doesn't go up that way. Gas actually goes all the way over here into another valve. So this is what a tankless water heater is, right? Normal water heater, you've seen, it looks like this. Oh, thank you, Corpo. Sweet Raccoon, Super Chat, 100 Swedish Kroner. Found your review of Shadowversity's book. It sucked out here. As a drunk forwarder Swedish infantryman, I want to ask, since your former USMC, where did that go? Is the fuckery of enlisted soldiers universal? 100%, yes. It's the one thing, and I think it was actually Swedish guys. There's a very famous, in infantry circles at least, video of this dude. His name's like Mukar or something like that. And I think it's actually Swedish commandos or Swedish Marines type, whatever the equivalent is. And he just walks around doing this like, and saying, and like, I don't know what he's saying, but I know he's the funniest guy in the unit, and I know him. He goes up to a dude and just click, and he goes up to a designated marksman or a scout sniper or a sniper or whatever the fuck you got, and he just goes up to the guy and just turns his windage knob, and the sniper looks at him like, and if you don't know what that means, it's fine, but he just goes click, and the sniper just goes like this. The most equivalent thing I could say to that is if you went up to somebody like, look, I just made a whole pot roast. It took like 4 hours, and then you just go like this and just dump like a dust pan on top of it. It's the only equivalent I can give you. But yes, the answer is yes. So anyway, there's a tankless water heater. Normal water heater looks like this, right? Some variation. It's a tube. If you're not from America, none of these like shapes look normal. Why the hell does that look like that? Don't worry about it. I can't help you, but whatever you use to heat your water, go for it. So yeah. Normal tank water heater looks like this. Actually, I can give it a little bit of flaring on the bottom right there. It goes up, right? Okay. This is actually a little bit squat. And then once I shave it off, there we go. Okay. Tank water heater. We'll have this. If it's gas, you're going to have a little hood right here. Stainless steel type deal. It's going to look like that. And go up, right? And then this will go to a little cap on the roof that looks like this. Okay? Maybe, if you have it installed correctly. So this is a gas water heater. It'll have hot water coming in, right? It'll have cold water coming in, and then it'll have hot water going out into the wall, and then it'll have usually down here, right? Especially mine had a digital readout system like this with a gas line coming out of the wall. You got to have over here is your gas line, right? You got to have your, it'll come out like that. So, and then it'll have a little tube that goes like this. This right here has to go down. Anybody now, this is my proof I know what I'm talking about. If somebody actually is a pipe fitter and they saw me draw this on the gas line, now they know that I know what I'm talking about. Go ahead and look it up. You just see what I did. If you see somebody drawing a gas line, right, that comes out especially to a unit like that's that size, they're going to draw a T, right? And your T is going to look like this. This is cast iron or black steel or what have you. Right, this is your T. You're going to have this pipe coming up, right? And then this little deal, this is going to be your... I can't fucking get it. All right. It's going to do this. This will go into the wall. Okay. This right here is the most important thing. All right. This is my proof. I know what I'm talking about. You're going to be like, oh, you did it to code. All right. You know what this is? This is a fucking sediment trap. It's a sediment trap on your black iron. This is this. Okay. I know it looks like a little fucking dick going down. Yes, it does. We'll square the end of it a little bit. There you go. This is a sediment trap. So what happens is, right, gas, especially high draw gas goes at about, depending, 2 to 3 psi. Natural gas is very, very low pressure, so it kind of just gets sucked in as opposed to like pushed. So it's not like a welding thing or like oxygen. It's very low for the sake of not dying. So you have to have really wide pipes to accommodate it because it draws. So like a vacuum, right? It's getting drawn in instead of pushed. So you have pretty fucking wide pipes to draw through it, so that it can take it in. So on this unit, it's a 3/4 inch, right? Most things, this was a 1/2 inch. Most things don't go above 1/2 in your standard residential home, especially if it's like a single family, not like 10 kids home. So this is a 3/4, which is a massive step up. Stoves tend to not be higher than 1/2. A lot of things can even go as low as 1/4, maybe even up to like 5/8. But like 3/4 is a fucking serious ass height. It's about the biggest fraction that you generally are going to see before you go up to just an inch in black iron. So this comes out. This is a sediment trap. So there's shit in the lines, right? And when it gets vacuumed, it goes like that. But the stuff is never going to be heavier than the gas, and the gas isn't going to get pulled at such a rate generally that it goes up. So when you have a high draw area, right? So right now, like the system's sitting, it's at 2 psi, right? So like if you just do like this and push your lips out with your a little bit of air from your lungs, you probably accelerated past 2 psi by a bit right there. It's very, very light amount of pressure. But when it shoots up, stuff that's in these pipes, because the pipes are dirty, no one ever cleans them. People reuse them because black steel and black iron, if it doesn't rust out, it's good pretty much forever if you use it with natural gas, as far as I know. But the stuff will get in it, and it'll actually get drawn down the line bit by bit, like bloop, bloop, bloop. And stuff from outside the house can get drawn down the line too. So to keep it from going up here, because it's heavier, it'll just go whoop, whop, and fall down here. You can also get condensation in the line, right? So there might be a little bit of condensation here and there, and then that water will eventually make its way down. And because the water's also heavier, it'll just go bup right down there. And so this little sediment trap has to be on everything. I think generally it has to be 4 inches. This is called a nipple. These black pipe pieces, because they go like this, right? The threads actually, I'm going to exaggerate the thread shape because you can't see it in a drawing. The thread shape is actually like this. It's a pyramid. This is a pressure pipe fitting. This is called pipe threads, right? And normally it actually looks like this, right? You wouldn't be able to tell really without looking at it. But as you tighten it, right, because the tolerances are just so slightly off, and then of course the interior of the fitting is similarly flared. As you tighten it, it gets exponentially tighter per turn, and you've got to fucking amp up on this. You cover it with something called pipe dope. Got a little thing, and then it's all gooed up, right? And then you twist it in. So that's what that is. So we had to get all of this set up. Now I'm going to delete this. So rewind if you want to learn a little bit more. So what we had to do for this is install a series of utilities, many of which we didn't have in the house already, or at least 2 of which we didn't have. These 2 unit pieces right here are in order from left to right: intake and exhaust, right? You can actually run these units. The one I have is a Renai. You can run them as a single breather. Don't ever do that. There's no reason to, unless, like, I don't know, someone gives you express permission. Don't ever run it like that. This is actually more in the middle, but this is the intake vent and this is the exhaust. Because of this, it's actually a considerably safer unit. On these water heater units, right, you actually have this big gas catcher. If somebody is a pipe fitter out there, you can tell me what the hell this thing's actually called, but it looks like this, right? Okay. And this unit, or this piece of HVAC equipment essentially, sits over the rim of the exhaust vent on top of the thing, right? So like, and there's this like this. These are all not to scale, it's just exaggerated so you can see it. And the gas just sort of goes up, it gets caught, which is not the best. In this unit, everything's on a pump, so it's louder technically than this unit is, but this unit's actually considerably louder when it's used overall. This has pumps in it, so actually the PSI for this thing is it's way less efficient. So the way that a standard water heater works, the tank type, right? I'm going to teach you guys all this shit because I want to instruct the youth. So we have two things. We have in, right, and we have out, and we'll cover that as out. So what happens is, and I can't remember what the entire inside of the unit looks like, but basically you have the gas, right, and it comes down to here, and then there's fire on the bottom. There's a lot of different ways now. Back in the day, it used to be just literally like a fucking stove, and this heats the water up. The way that this works is, they used to be actually gravity, which is insane, but what happens is you have the pressure, the PSI, from outside, right? So this is your line going in, 3/4 inch for me, 3/4 inch PEX, 3/4 inch copper. Before it was cold roll copper, soft copper they call it. So now it's PEX. This goes in, right? And so when there's a draw on this line, okay, the hot water that's up here, because hot water rises, you know what I mean? The hot water that's up here goes out this, and this pushes in, because it's always pushing, additional cold water from the bottom, and then it goes up, okay? Because of this, the PSI for this line controls the overall PSI for this line, and if somebody would want to ever do the math, at a decreasing rate of however much effort it takes for the pressure on this, which I think the standard pressure is what, 65 PSI to 85 PSI. I mean, I have no idea for a standard feed line. This comes off of the main line from the house, right? So the main line from the house is a 1 inch. Then it splits off into this 3/4. And then from this, there's actually a series of other branches. I think there might be 1 or 2 off here. And so every one of these feed outs is a different draw, right? And so as more weight has to be risen and pushed out of this, you lose certain amounts of pressure, because work is a loss of energy, okay? So the energy's lost, and so your pressure from your hot line is completely required, or completely dependent on your pressure from your cold line. So when you actually have cold and hot going at the same time, you have a net reduction overall, because you're drawing from the cold and you're drawing from the hot, obviously. The neat thing about the tankless, right, is the tankless has space magic, we'll call it, inside, but it's basically got a pumps, right? So what it does, and I don't know how this thing is shaped, so I'm just going to draw this big coil of nonsense. Essentially, you have a heat pump, right? And so this draws in, it feels the draw, and to accommodate the amount, because this has 40 gallons, right? This has next to, I think, less than point 2 maybe, I don't even know, inside of it at any time. It basically just has water resting. As the draw comes, it goes in and then out. This has to pump in time with the draw request, and so it can go way higher and heat way more per second than this burner can. So it draws way more gas and produces more heat energy, but it also doesn't have to keep anything heated. And because it doesn't have to heat the cold water that's coming in as part of a mix above it, it doesn't have to heat it hotter, you know what I mean, than it does. So it just literally heats the water to, I think the standard is 120 degrees, and then sends it. So when this comes in, you have the natural PSI, right? The natural PSI from the main plus the pump. And so you have a higher response rate, as far as I understand it. You have a higher response rate and a more uniform PSI overall than you would for than you would for this type of unit, which is basically relying on just like a little bit of just one thing's pressure. So it's not like this thing's going to be putting out like an insane amount of psi. I could probably look it up in the manual. But if you've ever been told when you're a kid, I don't know if people are taught this still, if you want hot water, you have to turn the hot water on first and let the hot water run until it's hot and then mix the cold. You have to do that for any of these units because this unit will be weakened overall. The overall PSI coming from that unit will decrease if you pull the cold in. Plus, you'll have the cold mixing in the faucet and you won't know exactly what the temperature is until it gets there. There's a lot of things in modern day that let you bypass that. You can have under sink heaters and all sorts of shit that are basically like a small version of this thing, but it is what it is. So that's just why to have those. And why these tankless heaters are cool. They're also considerably smaller. The dimensions on this are what, like, I think it's 10 inches. I measured this, I don't know why I said what, 27 and a quarter because I measured this 800 times. And then the left to right on it is, I think, 18 inches. And so like that's small as shit. This thing is a big fucking tank, a big circle, right? And it's right outside. This thing is about 12 inches, probably about 15 to 16, 15 to 16 this way, and it's a circle. And then top to bottom, the thing is up to my chest. So it's about 5.5 feet, 5.5 feet tall, which is a massive, massive amount of space, right? It's just all the way there. And because it's round, it kind of can't fit in any like squared up spaces. And it's just a fucking pain in the dick to deal with and like be around. So what we had to do is replace this whole deal. In the wall over here where this thing is, right, you have hot water and cold water coming out and then doing a jig, so to say, through the wall in order to attach to this. The actual shape of just the cold path, right? You have cold roll copper here, and then it comes up off of a 90, and then went out and then up, over, okay, to connect to this unit. From here, there was also a 1/2 inch line that went out, down, over, up, over, over through 2 studs, up again, and then over. So yeah, it was a copper line with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 90s and a T just to get right to here. On this line, there's a tap right here with a soft roll copper going into this wall for the refrigerator's box. So that the ice maker water. And so we had to deal with all of this stuff because it all has to be disconnected. So obviously we cut out the hot and the cold and put them all the way back here. So in 1 week, we had to cut out the hot and the cold that were in this wall, right? Had to cut out both of these, and now they are running down here. Okay, so we got my hot and my cold here, and then they connect in a much less psychotic way. My cold just goes straight into a T, right? That comes down. And then the T now goes over and up to the ice box here. And then it goes over and up to the new washing machine basin. Pretty simple. T to a T to a T. And then it also just comes out of the water, out of the wall right here and connects. So based. This is nice copper fittings that we all did. My father-in-law is a fucking absolute beast with it. Hot water, same deal. Hot water has to come over here, go up. It's on just a standard T that comes over and does this. But then like there's just a little bit of a weird 90-degree thing that I had to do to make it work so that it didn't come out at like toe height. Along with those also, we had to rerun the gas line, obviously. So the gas line had to come out here, and then we had to put on all the deals, and then it has its tube that comes up, which you can see right there. Also, we have to have in the wall a new plumbing, right? So we got our plumber's box right here, or our washing machine box right here, and it's there, and it goes down. And so for this, because the old unit was here, it goes like this, right? Under here, and then went over and up. And this is all for no good reason, copper. This piece goes up into my attic. Okay, this is a vent. So what you have to do is, and then this goes under here. It's actually the right color. This vent goes up, connects to a vent stack that has as well the vent from the kitchen, right? So what is this? I'm going to explain the basics of plumbing to you guys. If you are into, by the way, if you're into like fantasy and stuff, this is the shit you need to know to make a fantasy world good. Magic and shit is cute, but this is actually what makes your world go around. This, if you like dwarves, this is what dwarves are going to be figuring out, okay? Lightly complex, but sometimes actually pretty fucking confusing problems. And this has a penetration through the roof. So, and then it also comes down into the kitchen, and then kitchen drain goes and makes this big circuit like this, right? That this also connects into. And then goes down here. All this is copper. Copper's a pain in the ass to deal with, especially drain copper, because it gets really funky compared to most other drain substrates. So this has to get cut out because this wall is going to go away. What we decided is termite damage bad, bigger kitchen good. So all of this is going over here, right? And so we're going to destroy this wall that's, you know, right here, that you can see represented here at the bottom. This pipe has to get cut and all of this has to go away, right? Because all of this is in that wall, leaving the big chunk up here, right? That will have to get tied into. And then all of this gets pulled back right to here. And then we have a new tie-in right there. So what we had to do is take out all of this rotten wood and then rebuild this, because this is actually the real floor. And then there's studs here that I had to put in myself so that we could have where all this shit is. We have to cut holes in what we call blocking, right? So between the studs, had to cut individual little 2x6s and put holes in them to feed the pass through. And then we have to build this unit here of a drain. This is a P-trap, right? So I'll explain why all this stuff has to be done the way that it's done. This now goes up here and then over, and then connects right around here with what you call a Fernco. So that's a Fernco connection. So what happened is, and then this goes now super long into this connection. So what this is, right? When you have a sewer system, hey, there's my old S-bend. I'm just going to go ahead and draw this without being too hyper accurate. Okay. Every drain that you see has to be built like this. Minimum. This is the shape of a drain. If there was a plumber's guild, this would be their crest. This is a shape. If you show this to plumbers, they will know what this is in like 2 fucking seconds, right? If it's not too stylized. This is the standard P-trap. This is what every fucking drain is. What this does is make sure that you don't get sick as fuck. Inside a trap, why they call it a trap, is water. So this little area right here, I think I might have given up something, because like if somebody's going to have a plumber's guild now, this actually will be their crest. I just got robbed. So what this is a series of issues being solved, and we got better and better. You're probably familiar with this, right? This is an S-bend, which I drew that wrong. Goddamn, S-trap, yeah. So this is an S-trap, right? And we don't do these anymore because these don't work. So what happens is, in these, this area stays filled with water. And because it's full of water, the water is heavier and more dense than gas. Gas can't come back up through the pipe into your house. You know what I'm saying? But the thing about gas is it does create native pressure. Water and gas still are always constantly interacting with each other. And that is the heart of what plumbing is. So what we did first was make an S-bend, right? So S-bend is here, and the water will get trapped right there, okay? Because of physics, essentially. The problem with the S-bend is that the water, because of capillary action and the nature of how vacuums work, and because the air that's getting displaced in this pipe, because the pipe is not a vacuum, it will actually cause siphoning. So if you ever had a drain and it starts going like making those noises, that's a badly installed drain. What you're hearing is siphoning, which means actually the water is being sucked out of here in order to accommodate the air pressure that is being increased down here. So this water you flush, right? And then when you flush, you get an increase of air pressure down here that actually gets pretty fucking substantial. And all of these bubbles want to go back up because they want to go to the path of least resistance. You can actually, in some really, really shoddy systems, you can actually cause an instant backflow by basically the pressure rebounding everything back up, which is no good as one might expect. But generally what happens is the siphon empties out the S-bend. And so the S-bend will actually only have water to here, and this whole area will have air. And so if there's no water to block it, it won't breathe. So we solve this with a P-trap. There's other ways to solve it, but in residential plumbing, what you have is a P-trap. So in the P-trap, I know, how funny, P-trap. It's a P because it is literally the letter P, right? On its side, it's a P-trap. That's why the other one's called an S-bend. Very, very funny. So what happens is this fills with water. In a P-trap, you have a vent. So you have vent stacking, okay? The vent lets in and out air. So the sewer gases are always trying to go down because the biological matter that you flush down, most toilets and sinks and all that stuff, tomato peels and shit, decay. And they create a constantly increasing pressure of gas. And that gas has to go somewhere. These usually go through the roof penetration. If you go near one of these, it smells fucking horrible whenever you flush. So stay away from them. They can actually make you sick as fuck sometimes. But generally they're fine. These are open to the air, open to the elements. Water will go down them. It just helps clean out your drains. It's okay. But what happens in this is the water goes in, pushes through, and then it drains. And all of that pressure, because of the size of this line, it's usually 2 inches or larger. It always has to be bigger than the max load necessary to accommodate it. So with washing machines, it has to be 2 inches. 2 inches down means you connect to 2 inches or larger. You can't go down. So whatever the largest feed going into that stack is, no matter what it is, if it's a toilet, usually it's going to be 3 or 4 inches now, almost always 4 inches because motherfuckers be taking shits, you know what I mean? This would have to be that size. So, if it's a toilet stack, it's going to be 4 inches. And if it's just, a random remote bathroom stack, it might be down to like 1.5, or code might require all stacks be 2 inches or whatever and what have you. In this, the sewer gases now can go up, right? So you have to have that connected, and then the sewer gases can go up. This can breathe, and this regulates all the pressure. There's ways to bypass this. If you don't have a roof penetration or you're in a weird place, I had to do this at my old house. You still have to create essentially an S-bend, but what you do instead is you put something called an air admittance valve right here, which some people hate and some people say are never going to work, and it's always been fine with me. And this will let air into the pipe. And you actually, when you flush or use like anything, you'll hear it go like that to breathe. These valves have to be, and the vent stack has to be higher than the water level, right, of this. If it's not, then it's not going to work. So you can't tie in and do all this other stuff if these stacks aren't going to work. So that's kind of the thing. The P-trap has to be in level if it's like this. The tie-in for this area has to be above this, right? So that's your line. That has to be the tie-in with notable accommodation for it's going to go down. So you actually will have to get a slightly lower, and they all have to be within a certain amount of distance, because all plumbing has to drop at a rate of, in an inch, quarter inch per foot, right? I can never remember it, so I always look it up every time. So plumbing always has to go down. It can't go down too far, because if it goes down too far, you actually cause clogs because the water moves too fast for the solids. And if it's shallow, obviously nothing's going to go anywhere. And if it goes up, everything's just going to sit back in the pipe and rot. So that's not good. So for this fucking thing, we have to connect all of these, and you have this gigantic matrix hidden in the walls of all of these connected deals. So in 1 week, we had to rerun the water, we had to rerun the gas, right? We had to build all of these other things, and I had to, before this started, I had to build a wall that was already ready. And this is the cool thing that I really wanted to tell you about. So all this is with all this in mind. This is me like I'm fucked up. That's why I'm talking about it, so I can get it out of my head. This is going to be our new wall. And so these doors have to be filled, right, with wood. You got to frame it up. So stud every 16 on center, right? And because this is going in something, you tie here, right? You tie up to the top, etc. And then you have this little area. So there's one here and one here. The problem is if I just put the wall in, it's going to be impossible to get this fucking heavy ass water heater out. Hello. M&T Super Chat at $5. Thank you. It's not exactly what you're talking about, but you also need an air gap between your sink and faucet to prevent back siphonage contaminating your water. There's a bunch of reasons to do it. Just always look up the code. The code, you won't need it explained to you, but the code will be right. But yeah, you don't want stuff to come back. I think I might have actually mentioned back siphonage for the pop pressure, right? You flush and then it actually like sends it back up at you. So I have this like deal, right? So inside this stud compartment is going to be almost everything that actually this water heater is going to be attached to. So in the weeks preceding, or the days even preceding, I had to frame up all of this. And I framed this one up first. And while we're working on it, I have it tacked up here, and we built this entire fucking wall in place so that it could move for this. And this is the thing I did that was fucking cool. I hope I got some pictures of it. So in this, we put all of these things. This is how fucking much infrastructure was in here. All of this up to here, right, for the drains, the entirety of all of the plumbing, and the electrical boxes that have to go in. I know it's going to be just smudge, but that kind of like sells the point. All of these electrical boxes that have to go in, and this ice maker box that's over here with plumbing going to it, and the pre-runs for the rest of it. All of this was in here, and these 4 cells were completely drywalled. So I had this all completely drywalled. So here's my sockets, right? And then eventually my penetrations. Well, the socket's going to be right there. And the penetrations are going to be like right here. All of this is completely drywalled. This area right here where the unit's going to go is completely painted. And all of it so that I could slide it out and over. And for the last day, it was just sitting up here on the wall, like sitting on its side like that. So I basically made... Anybody that's been to vocational school, and I didn't go to it, but I've been through them. I made a test wall, literally like a thing. They do these in school, so it's a wall that you can see both sides of, so that people can practice, their electrical work. So I had in this thing, I had my boxes set up, my 20 amps. I had it fully wired. I have an inline GFCI, so it's a wet area. So this is a GFCI, which is a ground fault connector interrupter connected to just a standard 20 amp socket. Because that's what the power requirement for this is just standard 20 amp. It's really low power. It really just operates like the pump a bit, and the connection when it's going, it's pretty low ball because everything else runs off the heat. And so I had all of that going, dude. I had the sockets were wired, the drywall was in, mudded, primered, and painted specifically only in the area where I needed it, so that when I do the tie-in, because right now I've got all the rest of it, it's gone. So in a week, we did all of this stuff. This is the pain in the ass. These are 3-inch PVC runs. It has to be 3-inch, and it has to be the Schedule 40 solid core, no foam core. So it's a special pipe that for some reason they don't have at Lowe's anymore. Had to go to Home Depot, get 3 30-foot sticks of that, or 3 10-foot sticks of that, chopping it on the chop saw, putting it together, going on the outside of the house, doing all this. And then just at the last day, we slide this fucking thing into place. Oh, and before I did concrete penetrations right here. So I drilled holes in the concrete in between every stud. And then we have tap down fasteners so that this is completely secure. Last day, we slide it in, secure it, bottom, top, sides, all that. And then for like 3 hours, we just run the rest of the stuff. And it's just click, boom, click, boom. And it all comes together. And I mean, it was an insane amount of work to get all of this shit in there, but like, goddamn, I was so fucking impressed. And so like, this is kind of where we are with the office right now. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it, but now this is all filled in, right? So this is done. This panel is still open so I can see and peek through. And then the unit is here, right? With its little pipes going up. And then it has its pieces down. And then I'm going to have to still mud and tape in all the rest of it. But it's absolutely fucking bonkers. And then the final office shape, this is the door to this, will be like this, so that you guys know. The final boss of Westside, Tyler office space. It'll eventually be like this with a door probably somewhere right around here, because my attic entrance is like there, right? And so we have this door here. We'll have this eventually, and then this will be like nice. And eventually this will be where the show is when we're done. And I had my father-in-law over here, so I didn't want to film a bunch of shit. But this is the setup, and like this is the whole deal. I'm actually kind of impressed. I've been practicing schematic drawing. This is solid. I'm very happy with it. But this is kind of what's been going on, and what's going to be happening over the next year, so that you guys know what the fuck has been going on. But yeah, I had to go for a week. We did 5. I mean, I did 7, essentially 12 to 14 hour days in a row. I have not taken a break. Last night, I just stayed up all night and drew and turned my brain off and played Apex and listened to Papa Got and got pissed off at stupid fucking takes. And like now I'm here, and it's been wild, man. And so that part's done now. That part is done.
Hope you enjoyed your time on the West Side.